Are you convinced that you could be living a better life, but you're finding it hard to actually start that process? Or maybe you started it and now you've gotten stuck. Maybe you're here today watching this video because you've tried all the tips and tricks for manifestation and setting your intention and letting go and all the things you hear people talk about. That's the true path to your dreams. I've got some good news for you. I believe there are two major things that hold us back on our manifestation journey to the life of our dreams, and I'm going to share them with you in the next few minutes. I'm Jim, y'all. I'm a former pastor who's no longer religious, but I'm deeply spiritual, and I like to help people discover the best version of themselves and begin to live their best life. I believe you can do it because I believe we become what we believe. And when you start believing in yourself, you're going to see big things happen in your life. But what about these two things that are holding us back? When it comes to setting your intention on the life you want and manifesting the dream life that I know you can have, usually most of us are held back in one of two categories. We're either held back by our past or we're held back by our future. And what I mean by that is this. For a lot of us, we're held back by baggage or weights or things that are tying us down from our past. It might be a relationship gone wrong. It might be a past failure, or like in my case, a series of past failures. It might be that you are holding on to forgiveness that you could be freely giving away and freeing up all kinds of energy in your body. When we learn to let go of our past, when we learn to forgive those who have wronged us or hurt us or shaped us and had a part in the life we now live, when we learn to let all of that stuff go, we free up our lives, but we also free up our energy. And when we free up our energy, suddenly that energy gets devoted and focused on what it's made to do in our life, and it becomes creative energy. You begin to create literally. That is what God is all about. That is what Source is all about, is creation, constantly creating something new, constantly putting something better in the atmosphere of the universe. In fact, the universe is ever expanding. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everything naturally is meant to create, to grow, to expand outward, and so are you. But a lot of times we're tied down, we're held back by our past. And I don't know what it is for you. I know for me, I've begun to discover lately some of the things that have held me back, some of the limiting beliefs that I have tied my life down with, some things that I picked up. I'll talk to you about a couple of those here in this video that have held me back in my life. Now, for a lot of us, it is our future that holds us back. Now, how does your future hold you back? More specifically, a fear of our future, a fear of what could happen or might happen or maybe won't happen that we want to happen. And we get tied up in knots worrying about our future. Now, if you're like me, maybe it's a combination of the both. Until recently, I've never thought of myself as a fearful person. I'm a risk taker. I've gone skydiving. I try all the big rides at amusement parks. I do all the stuff that I can do. I like to get a hold of life and live it to the full. And I've always been like that. And I'm not just a risk taker when it comes to fun. I'm a risk taker in my life. My family and I, back in our church days, packed up, moved from Arkansas to Wisconsin with no prospect of a future and how we were going to make it happen. We knew literally 4 people in the entire state we moved to, and we started a church for people who don't like church from scratch and made a go of it for about 12 years there before I moved on to the next phase of my life. I am a risk taker, but what I've learned about myself lately is I fear so very many things, and maybe you do too. I fear that I'm not good enough sometimes to do the things that I feel compelled to do and gifted to do and called to do. Some of my strengths that people will tell me from the outside that are my strongest strengths, that they've never met anybody that has the giftedness that I do in these areas. It's some of those same areas that I fear I'm not good enough, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not gifted enough. I was thinking about how manifestation is very much like when we had to write papers in school. When I was in college, we had to write a lot of essays in different classes, and they always were filled with those two aspects of what holds us back the most: a a hanging on to our past, a gripping a past that we don't like and not being able to let it go, not being able to forget it, and a fear of the future. Now, go a little backwards here. The reason I feared papers for the future is they were daunting to me. I'm one of those people that I like to get things done and I like to get on them and get them done fast. And essay type papers that are written at the end of a term can't be done like that. You have to do them over time. It takes days, it takes weeks to write a good one sometimes. And I wanted to get it done in one night. And I always had these daunting fears. And a lot of times I would procrastinate right up to the end. A lot of times my wife, once we got married, would write the papers with me or sometimes for me because I had such an anxiety about getting them done that I would put them off because I feared what might happen. Did you know why I feared that future? Because I was hanging on to some things that I didn't even realize then from my past. I was hanging on to a junior high teacher that told me one time, he never came out and said, Jim, you're dumb, but he insinuated, Jim, you're dumb. And it got in my mind. And because I couldn't keep up with pre-algebra at that time, they put me in remedial math in school. And from then on, I thought I was dumb. And I went through my life for many, many, many decades thinking, Jim, you're dumb, Jim, you're dumb, Jim, you're dumb. And I hate to even say it now. It haunts me like echoes in my mind to repeat those words because now I know it's not true and I've broken free from that. But papers would do that to me. They would say, Jim, you can't write it because you're dumb. You're not smart enough to do this. You're not like these other students in this class. You don't have the goods. And I'd convinced myself of that. And it absolutely wasn't true. So I had these pulls from my past of I'm not cut out for this. And these fears from my future. This is too daunting. I can't do it because it's tied back to that past. And these things together kept me just tied in knots and tied down. And that was just with writing essays and papers in college. What I've learned in my life as I've rewired my brain over the last year is this. I've held myself back in so many ways, whether it be from limiting beliefs I've put in my own mind or let others imprint into my mind from my past that have told me who I am and what I am and who I can be and what I can be or what I can do and can't do. I listened to those voices for so long, they held me back. They tied me down like ropes, like weights, and I couldn't escape that past. Or I would look to the future and I would get fearful about, I can't do this because ... I would, but, and I had all these things. I used to tell the students I worked with in churches, you know what gets in your way? Your big old butt. And I was doing that myself. I had a big old butt in my way. I would do this, but, and I always had a reason tied to that past, giving me fear in my future. So I don't know if it's a combination for you of the both, like it is for me, or you lean more heavily to one than the other. I know for me, probably fear of my future has held me back way more than some of the regrets and problems of my past. But whatever it is for you, it's time to cut the ties. It's time to let them go. There is a quote that I absolutely love, and it's by Leland Van Vanderwall. And Leland said this, let us not look back in anger, nor forward in fear, but around us in awareness. Is that not beautiful? Let us not look back in anger, nor forward in fear, but around us in awareness. Live in this moment. And the way you do that is you start to learn to get comfortable with those past ties that are holding you down. When you feel them rising up in you, don't fight them. Let them rise up. For years, I stuffed them down and I pushed them down and I didn't deal with them. I'd start feeling dumb and I'd think, I don't want to think about that. I want to do something else. I'll go do something that proves I'm not dumb and I don't want to deal with it. Deal with it. Let it come up. Let it rise up and settle in you. One practice I like is just to close my eyes and breathe and try to feel in my body where I'm feeling that uncomfortable feeling when something rises up from my past that I don't like. Sit with it. Do you know the average feeling lasts about 90 seconds? You can set out 90 seconds, right? You can sit it out. Just sit it out, let it rise, feel it, and then just let it depart from your body. Let it go. Give it to Source. Give it to God and just let it rise out of you. And when you do that, it sets you free to focus on a new future, not a fearful future, not a future that says, oh, I can't, I might, I would, but, and get your big butt in the way, but it gets you back in that power of now. And that's why I love Leland's quote so very much. Get aware of who you are now, who you're really meant to be, the real you. Let go of your past. Don't worry about your future. Live in this moment and begin to build the life of your dreams. You can do it. We can all do it because we become what we believe. If you want to change your future today, you just need to believe in a brand new you.